Minions and Associates. If you are already a minion and would like to tithe, please hit like. If you would like to become a minion, please hit follow. If you would like to confess, please do so in the comments. And if you would like to evangelize, please share. Today we're going to talk about autism and suicide. I have not been able to talk about this very much at all, as my own son, who was autistic also, took his life October of this last October at the age of 22. I personally, I said this for a long time, and a lot of people disagree with me, but we'll see this. I don't know, maybe nobody will disagree with me, but if you have not been bullied or contemplated suicide, either one of those at some point in time in your life, you're not autistic. I'm just going to say. I mean, the possibilities of you being autistic and have never been bullied and never been contemplating suicide in your life is almost zil. Now, what's interesting is we're going to find one of these scientists here that, well, they, I always love it when, rather than going to the autistic community, how these researchers and so forth say, well, we don't have enough research to do to know about that right now. We just don't know because we just don't have the research. And, well, technically, they, all they had to do was ask the autistic community. That's it. That is it. This is Autism. I am not familiar with this this channel. It looks like I've subscribed to them, but let's see what they have.
That my ability to mask is something that should be aimed for. I don't know if I can do this.
I know that feeling.
I made this whole video, and really when I made it initially, I thought that it was mostly about sharing my own personal experience. I was going to stop there. After editing it, re-editing it, and uploading it, it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel finished. And so I stopped and deleted that video, which is the video that you're about to see. But I felt like it needed more. The first thing that I felt like it needed is I needed to start by saying how thankful I am now to be alive. I am thankful that 20 years ago this January, I failed when I tried to kill myself. I am thankful for that every day. I'm thankful that I got to finish growing up and that I got married, that I have 5 children and a husband, and that I got a chance to know all of them and love all of them and go on having this sometimes chaotic but wonderful life that we have together. In the midst of a very dark time, I didn't see how that could be possible. Throughout this video, there are going to be times when there is a hotline number for a national suicide hotline. Please, if you've somehow gotten here because you have any feelings of harming yourself, use that number. Because I know it can feel impossibly hard at times, and it can feel like it's never going to be better.
Now those numbers, for me, I'm PDA, and I'm a former peace officer, and calling the suicide hotline to me just terrifies me because I'm terrified that somebody's going to call the police. And the first thing the police want to do is show up and kill people or restrain people, and that's the very worst thing that you could do for me.
But there is help. It took me a lot of different antidepressants to find the right antidepressant that makes my brain happy. And one of the reasons that I like to talk about depression is because I feel like that stigma needs to be gone. Because literally for me, the difference between...
And this is why I have such a difficult time with Autism Speaks, because Autism Speaks has furthered that stigma that she's talking about. Rather than normalizing autism, they have increased the stigma itself of autism.
between
and
depression
the stigma of mental health, which my son, we tried to encourage him to get the proper mental health care that he needed, but he simply refused. And it was, I believe, because of the stigma.
and not depression is medication. And it's as simple as that for me. I know it's not that way for everybody, but I can eat perfectly, I can get tons of exercise, and the chemistry in my brain just isn't right without a little extra help. Now, on to this video, which I think discusses a really important topic. It is undeniably true that many autistic people struggle with depression, and that is why this topic is so important to me, both because it hits so very close to home and because it's so important to our community. One of the things that kind of bugs me is that when a lot of people hear about my diagnosis, sometimes doctor-like people, a lot of times the reaction is to talk about how well I've done. A lot of times the word high functioning is used. A lot of times the word Asperger's is used, even though it's no longer a diagnosis. A lot of times I get congratulated on how well I have done and how well I function in the world. And I realize that I am able to carry myself and present myself in a way to the outside world that looks very put together. I'm able to get myself.
We're always pretending. We're always pretending everything's okay because that's what's expected of us. And we get used to pretending everything is okay to the point where it gets to be very dangerous for us.
My kids to, heck, it used to be over 300 appointments a year, and I could push myself very, very, very hard in terms of being really uncomfortable and in a lot of pain, and just keep going through that and just ignore it. And I'm not sure that's a good thing, but that's not even really what I want to talk about. I guess in a way, what I want to talk about is it makes me uncomfortable when people hear my diagnosis, being autistic and having ADHD and anxiety, and look at the way that I hold myself together as any kind of success. I feel like they're looking at my mask, my ability to mask, as the measure of success. And I feel like masking almost killed me a few times. I don't want anyone to think that my ability to mask is something that should be aimed for. It's almost like I don't know how not to mask.
I completely agree, and I believe that masking has come close to costing my life too. And the reason is because you're masking so much, you're covering it up so much, the hurt, the pain, whatever else, the autism, that you don't even realize that you're doing it. And so because of that, you can't address it.
Because I always have pushed myself hard. I've always been a perfectionist. I'm not really sure how not to mask. I remember teaching myself social scripts and coming up with them and laying them out in my head. And even now I still do when I'm going to be having a conversation with someone that I don't know. I play the conversation out beforehand and I rehearse what I'm going to say. In a way, those are scripts, just like Maggie has her own scripts that she uses. But maybe you're wondering about what I said earlier, about how it almost killed me twice. How I almost killed me twice. And that's what I want to talk about today, because I think it's an important part of the story. And when you talk about being autistic, it's almost impossible to escape talking about how vulnerable we can be, how often we have instances of trauma. I've written a lot. I'm not going to go into details here. When I was younger, I was just very trusting and very naive, and as a result, I was diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress. I think that the thing...
And usually women are first diagnosed with anything but autism. Usually women are misdiagnosed first before they actually get, if they are autistic, they're usually misdiagnosed before they are properly diagnosed.
The thing that helped me the most, honestly, at the time when it all happened, was that I was on amitriptyline for migraines. And I took it for about 3 or 4 years, and then I went off of it in college. I was holding all of this together, and when I went off of the amitriptyline that I'd only been taking for migraines, not for depression, because we didn't know that I had depression, and also having all this undealt with trauma that I wasn't talking about or telling anyone about or dealing with. It all just sort of was like a house of cards that just fell apart. And I had started cutting myself at the time. I used to say that it was to feel something, but I don't know, I almost think looking back that it was to feel something other than how I was feeling. Because on the one hand, I remember feeling like I felt nothing, but I felt awful too. I think sometimes I really feel happy, good emotions, and I definitely feel annoyance, the little bad emotions in day-to-day life even today. But I've realized, and I think this might be a trauma thing, that the really big emotions, the really big bad emotions, there's kind of like a, I don't know, breaker switch in my brain, I feel like sometimes, that just shuts off when it's too much and then it's nothing. And I kind of wondered if that's a trauma thing. I've only realized this recently. Because
oh my goodness.
That's when I tried to kill myself twice. The second time, most definitely more seriously, where I took an entire bottle of Excedrin migraine medication, which I would not recommend ever trying to kill yourself, but that was truly, truly dreadful because it was a whole lot of Tylenol and a whole lot of aspirin and a whole lot of caffeine. And my lips turned blue and my fingers turned blue and my toes turned blue. When they put me in the ambulance, the oximeter said my oxygen level was 50 something, which they kept saying couldn't be right. And when I got to the hospital, they said that my blood level of, I don't know, probably Tylenol, I'm guessing, I'm not sure, was 3 points over what should have killed me, and that they didn't know how I lived. But I did, and I was glad I did. I had a lot of stuff to work through with a lot of therapists, a lot of trauma-related stuff, abuse-related stuff. I learned to be less trusting of people and lost a lot of that. And I have it.
That's kind of scary that she went through that, where they told her that she shouldn't have lived. That's pretty serious.
And became a black belt in karate, so that I felt like I could actually protect myself and didn't feel so helpless and defenseless anymore. Oh, I bought pepper spray too. And I saw a psychiatrist who got me on the right meds. It took a while, and I saw a therapist for like 3 years. Every week, he told me to trust my instincts about people. Life got better. But the reason I bring this up, the reason I tell that story, is because through all that, I was masking. I was, through the beginning part, when all that trauma stuff was going on, I was co-valedictorian, I was a cheerleader, I was...
And see, my son, he definitely masked too, but he only really realized that he was autistic for a very short period of time, a matter of a couple of months before he committed suicide. Now, being autistic itself didn't have anything to do with the suicide. It was other life's issues.
National Scholarship Association, California Scholarship Federation. I was getting 4.0s. I was doing dance. I was doing every single extracurricular thing that I possibly could, and I was making everything look as perfect as I possibly could because I wanted it all to be perfect.
Now, Trevor, I was saying earlier that if somebody has not been bullied in their life, or never never thought about suicide, if they have never done either one of those, if they've never been bullied and never contemplated suicide, I would dare to say that they are not autistic. We're going to see here where it's so annoying that these scientists are saying, well, we don't know, we don't really know how many people, autistic people are suicidal because we just haven't done the research. Most of us, almost all of us. You don't have to do any research. There's one, we saw it earlier, or maybe it might come back up again today, where this fellow was saying that he found that researchers found that a third of us 33% of contemplated suicide, whereas like 0.10% of neurotypical people. I do not believe that only a third of us have committed or contemplated suicide. I can't see that is even vaguely true.
For college, so that it would all look perfect on my college applications, and that was, for me, that's what I wanted. It wasn't like anyone else was pushing me to do that. So masking. I've talked about here how at times my mask absolutely fails. At times I get so anxious that it completely falls off into a huge quaking puddle of insecurity, and I can hardly make eye contact, and that's all I can think about, and I get completely awkward. And usually I try to deal with that with self-deprecating humor or make jokes about it, just kind of fumbling get through the situation. I find myself more comfortable with those situations, with those times when I actually am more awkward, more myself, than I am with being complimented on my mask when I tell someone that I'm autistic, because that is probably...
So what she's talking about being complimented on her mask is like, oh, I didn't know you were autistic, or you don't look autistic, or you don't act autistic, or that kind of thing. And what they're doing is they're saying that you're really good at covering it up and making me comfortable. They don't know they're saying that, but that's what they're saying.
Probably the one thing that I'm really not that proud of. I feel like it's this dangerous thing. I feel like it has cost me a great deal psychologically. I feel lucky to have survived trying to fit in, trying to be like everyone else, forcing eye contact, which I can't help but do now. I do it automatically, but all of these things that I taught myself, this mask that I created for myself, and I know the strain that it has put on myself, and how absolutely depressed and vulnerable it has made me at various times in my life. Right now, my depression is fairly well controlled. My doctor just upped my depression meds again. The stress of everything that's going on right now. I really don't feel depressed at all, but he wasn't super happy with the results of my last little anxiety depression chart, and so he upped them again, which I think would be less likely to have to happen, but the psych place still hasn't gotten my ADHD results to him, and so he can't start ADHD meds, so he felt like this was the next best thing.
Now there's a lot, at one time you could only diagnose autism or ADHD. They realized that there was a very close relation. So what the doctors would do is they would diagnose autistic kids or autistic adults with ADHD, because they could at least medicate with ADHD, and they couldn't with autism. Well, now the thing is there's nothing to medicate with autism, but the thing is back then, if you had to choose one or the other, then the only logical choice was ADHD, so that you could at least treat the ADHD. Now you can diagnose with both and treat the ADHD, like in my case, with medication.
Until he gets those results, which are being held up because of the shutdown. They didn't get them through before that. So we're still all waiting. When we were talking, and he asked about why I thought it might be worse, the scores might be worse. I was kind of like being locked in a house. Although I also feel like being locked in a house has made a lot of things less stressful for me too. I've actually had less migraines, which I think is probably a sensory thing, like less sensory input from the outside world. I'm getting more stressed about going out, but I don't have to go out as often, so that's good in some ways, not so good in others. I don't know. I get the reaction people have when I'm talking to them, and I speak clearly and I make eye contact, and the first thing that a lot of people, they say, it feels like a compliment to say, oh, you're so high functioning, but it is very, very mixed. I am thankful for the many things that I am able to do, especially for the many things that I've been able to do to help my kids. I guess I'm especially thankful that I am able to relate to my kids in a lot of
And you know, the thing is with the high functioning thing. If somebody, one time somebody told me that I was functioning very, very well for being autistic, and I told them that they were functioning very, very well for not being autistic. And that person's like, "Oh my God, I'm a jerk," and I just laughed and made a joke of it. But this very well-intentioned person realized that they were being a little bit ableist. Accidentally, and that's okay. That's okay. But they recognize that, and that's what was really cool about it.
A child with autism.
Okay, so this is a channel, What's Trending, not important channel, but here's a important story from it.
Autism has written several heartbreaking suicide notes and has even attempted to kill himself.
Let me say, okay, not important to autism. This is not an autism-specific channel, is what I meant.
A pair of scissors. Welcome back to What's Trending. I'm Ava Gordy. Be sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories. Over the course of a year, 8-year-old Jack Rogan has written several notes to his mother telling her that he wants to die. They said, "What is wrong with me? I hate my life. I wish that my mom killed me, and I don't know who I am anymore." His mother, Carrie Linnell, also took notes of the things that he said aloud to her. Things like, "I want you to burn me alive, take me to a volcano and push me in the lava, and put me in a graveyard and say R.I.P. to Jacko." Carrie also revealed that he even tried to take his own life with a pair of scissors. Following the attempt, she took Jack to Adler Hay Children's Hospital, where doctors said that there weren't available beds in a specialist unit. He was placed in a ward without mental health treatment and has been there for 7 weeks. Carrie explained that all of his distress started when he was struggling fitting in at a new school. "It's a terrible situation and it just tears me apart. I'm not able to give him what he needs. As he's getting older, he realizes how different the world is to him, and it makes him feel like a bad person. He would kick and punch me, pull my hair, bite himself, and try to pull his ears off."
I know exactly what those feels like. I know I didn't react in this way, but I definitely understand knowing that you're very, very different from everybody else. I definitely understand.
And he'd start sobbing afterward and start saying those things. Carrie has stayed by his side in the hospital 24/7 to make sure that he doesn't harm himself. She's even given up work to care for him. Even some members of Liverpool Football Club stopped by to support Jack. Jack's friends and family started a Facebook page for Carrie and her son called Justice for Jacko. They started petitions to bring more beds to the hospitals for mentally unwell children. Luciana Berger, an MP for Wavertree and Shadow Minister for Mental Health, said that no new government plans were in effect for kids like Jack. Quote, "We are leaving a generation in pain. They are being let down because the care is not there. I believe that ministers have failed to meet the scale of the challenge." A spokesperson for the hospital said, quote, "Our specialist Dewey Jones unit is based in Waterloo and is one of only 6 units solely dedicated to children's mental health conditions in the country. There are 7 specialist beds within the unit, which are commissioned nationally by NHS England. Our priority is always to ensure that children remain safe and cared for while we work hard behind the scenes to provide a specialist bed as soon as possible."
But they aren't. If they really, 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 really wanted that care to be provided, they would find a way. But they're not, because they don't care. That's all there is to it.
During this time, we always strive to provide as much support as possible to our patients and their families. So while Carrie...
So they couldn't have a doctor go to the other ward? They couldn't have a counselor walk with their 2 little footsies to the other ward? No, that's too much effort.
On the scale that they have.
He admits that the hospital staff is doing the best that they can. The problem
No,
here
they're not. They are not doing the best they can.
is that there's not enough facilities in the entire country to even handle problems like this. Mental health is immensely important, especially in children. With cases like Ashanti,
They already have the facility. They said they had him in a bed for 7 weeks. So the facilities are there, and it's in the same damn building. That's not enough. They can't walk from one end of the building to the other?
The initial assault was just exceptionally.
Or maybe they were adjacent.
You know, a great example of that is the Hostelman Airport.
This is, it looks a lot like lack of effort to me, from what I can see.
Davis, the 10-year-old who hung herself after a video of her being bullied was shared on Musical.ly. And
This is the thing, is mom quit her job to stay with that child.
phase of the operation. So they just planned it and executed it really badly.
Even though he was in the hospital because they weren't providing
Training
staff to make sure that he didn't hurt
it was
himself.
incredibly effective. The javelin is a brilliant weapon, and it showed its value in those first 3 days. And I think we're continuing to see poor operational planning from the Russians, with Kharkiv being a really good example of that. They've literally just thrown
They
platoon after platoon after platoon.
And Caitlin Davis, a 12-year-old who live streamed hanging herself after she was bullied at school. To prevent suicides like these, the resources need to be in place for children to go to someone who's a professional so they can talk out their negative headspaces. The feel-good news of this story is that Jack's Facebook page has gotten immensely popular. His mom said, quote, "I've had over 100 cards and 30 gifts from people, some from New Zealand, after I posted on Facebook."
Oh.
They got chocolate. Oh,
What
my
you say to
goodness
everybody
gracious.
for the...
She explained that Jack is feeling loved and wanted, with all of these people in the world sharing their messages and cards and gifts with him. So send Jack a positive message in the comments below and check out his petitions. They'll be linked in the description. And thank you so much for watching.
That's really, really cool. I'm glad that they got him squared away. Now, this is Autism Speaks, and I just want to show you something here.
The ability to strike targets now in part of Russia's rear area will be important.
Go to Dark Reader. They always have the site like this, and this just shows you. It's a white page like this. It shows you how out of touch that Autism Speaks is with autistic people. This hurts. Autism Speaks, you are hurting me with your website, but they don't care. You would think after being around for a couple of decades, or at least a decade now, that they would know not to do white pages. But they don't have enough consideration for an autistic person to bother to click like this and change the color of the page, which is exactly how you do it on websites. When you get into the editing, you just click on the page, it'll say colors, and you can change the color palette. And even after I have complained about this, and they know it, they still have not changed their website, and they stay with those awful white pages. This is Dark Reader, by the way, an excellent plug-in on Google, and it now the thing is this: here's a doctor that it's so hard to do this. It's so hard. But basically,
escalate matters without it being catastrophic for Russia.
This doctor here, let's just take a look. I've read some of the reports recently about suicide rates rising for certain age groups and kids. Now she's going to act like they have no idea, because they haven't done the study. They haven't done the research to find out the suicide rates of autistic people. You know what? All you have to do is go to the autistic community and ask us. And it's most of us, like almost all of us that have committed or contemplated suicide.
See the world come to peace.
But she's going to come up with what statistics they came up with, which most of, particularly the stuff from the autistic community, isn't even recorded. We don't report that stuff, so they're basically guessing looking at medical records. They're not getting actual reports from actually autistic people here. They're guessing from medical records, and all autistic people do not tell their doctors if they are actually suicidal, because they know what can happen. They may call the police, and they may be restrained. They may be hurt by the police because we're autistic. So you're damn right we're not going to report it. Anyway, so she goes on just talking about how people with autism often have co-occurring conditions that affect risk for suicide. Although there's not enough research to know if certain age groups of these people on the spectrums are at greater risk, we do know that young people in general are at a high risk
all that
group.
nonsense, people credibly believe it. It's a very, very powerful.
In broader studies, youth suicide rates have been increasing since 2007. No. Basically, this my whole point here is this is just another doctor that is not autistic, not in any way, shape, or form connected to the autistic community, telling us all about her expertise, because she knows it all because she's a PhD doctor, and therefore she is a goddess and knows everything. Whereas she could just go to the autistic community and ask us. That's simple. Look at that little smug-ass smile she's got there. And here we are again. Now this is their, I don't even know what this page is, but they're talking about suicides in children and teens. And this is a sentence that got me here. This is a very bad, screwed up sentence. For some teens, suicide may appear to be a solution to their problems. It is a solution. It is absolutely a solution. When someone is dead, they don't have any problems anymore. So you're lying here, acting as if suicide is not a solution. Now, just by lying, you have completely lost my trust. I don't want to read another damn thing you have to say here. I have. But why would you lie to somebody who's suicidal? You're breaking the trust of someone who is suicidal. Great job, people. Great job. That's just a blank page. Alright, so, now this is new. This is within the last couple of days, and I could not find any videos on this yet. This is June 10th. New suicide prevention intervention developed specifically for autistic adults has been trialed as part of a program to research and identify ways to reduce suicide and self-harming among autistic people. Now, I don't know where this study thing or whatever, it says University of Nottingham. So already, this is a bunch of PhD doctors that probably didn't bother to ask autistic people. They got to do their studies. I don't know why the hell research and studies can't be going to the autistic community and asking us as a starting point. But they never do. They just figure they know what our problems are and they know how they're going to solve them, and so they do what they're going to do. And completely ignore the people that they supposedly are trying to help. The trial has been carried out by experts at the University of Nottingham School of Psychology and Newcastle University, so I'm guessing this is England. Who tested, well, University of, let's see where University of Nottingham is. I don't know where that is. Anybody know where University of Nottingham is? Yeah, it's England. Dr. Sarah Cassidy from the university led the research. They have shown in previous studies that autistic people are at higher risk for self-harm and suicide. Like they had to do a study to figure that out. This is what pisses me off. Why can't they just go to the autistic community and do a survey? That's a study. But no. They will not go to the autistic community. They refuse to go to us, the people they say that they're trying to help. So they have They have shown in previous studies that autistic people are at higher risk of self-harm, suicide compared to non-autistic people, but there is a lack of research into what could help reduce the risk. First of all, by not treating us like holistic people. That's the number one thing. Not lying to us like the previous page did. That said that suicidal people think that suicide is a solution. No, it is a damn solution. It's not a good one, but it is a solution. My son is not experiencing any emotional pain right now because he is dead because he blew his brains out. And advice like that did not help him stay alive. Lying to people who are suicidal. Unbelievable. Anyway, moving right along. We have consulted with autistic people, yes, sure you have, and those who support them worldwide. Okay, so like freaking, what'd you do? Call Autism Speaks